And just like that, the first domino of the Cleveland Browns offseason falls.
We finally have ourselves an O lineman. Maybe not on the side that we necessarily wanted, but we do have one. Make sure you hit that like button, hit subscribe. Also, call in, leave us a voicemail. We'll play it on the show 216-260-3433. Noah, maybe not the piece we were expecting, but a nice addition.
Yeah, and if you have been living underneath a rock, the Cleveland Browns and the Houston Texans have made yet another trade. I feel like we talk about that at least once a season, once an offseason. Tytus Howard, right tackle, coming from the Texans over here to Cleveland for one of our 5th-round picks this year. I believe it's the Las Vegas Raiders pick, which was the Kenny Pickett pick, which
Correct.
comes through the grapevine from Zadarius Smith or something like that
Mhm.
too. So we have now flipped Kenny Pickett, Zadarius Smith, and whatnot into our starting right tackle of the future and the now, of course. What was your reaction when this news broke, man?
Like anybody, any Cleveland fan's reaction to an O lineman, probably. Who? Because I just don't, understand or know O linemen like I do other players in the league, especially for a team like the Texans. I'm not exactly following their O line. Uh, from what I've read, and I could be wrong on this, I don't think he's given up a sack since like the 2024 playoff up 2024 playoff game, and he had a down year last year too. So he gives us really good protection on that right side of the line. It makes the draft a little more interesting, though, in my opinion.
It does make the draft more interesting, but I had to play the highlights of him just giving the work to TJ Watt because he's going to see him twice a year now. He is a damn good pass blocking offensive lineman. I mean, he grades top 20. He's 17th in terms of Pro Football Focus. His run blocking leaves a little bit to be desired, which is totally fine. I think at this point, I think we need a little bit of help there on the offensive line. I think this makes the entire situation as well with Dewan Jones a little bit more flexible. Now Dewan can really be our swing tackle, our backup guy. We don't have to rely on him, which I think is ultimately the best fit for him. But you're right. You mentioned his sack numbers. He hasn't let up a sack in quite some time. No sacks let up in the 2025 season. The other thing I really like about him, and the thing that I think is going to help us tremendously, whether it be our draft board, whether it be us evaluating talent as the free agency market takes shape and prices and whatnot, is the fact that he played not only right guard or right tackle last year, but he did play right guard. He played left guard. He's played left tackle in his career. The only offensive line position he hasn't played is center. And to have that type of flexibility at the NFL level is honestly kind of rare. I mean, we've seen it in our own offensive line room. So to bring him in to be a guy that can play not only right tackle, and that's probably where he'll slot with the extension that we gave him, but have him potentially play elsewhere as well, need be, barring injuries, is huge to me.
Yeah, I mean, we might have overpaid a little bit, and that's just the market right now for O linemen. I will say that Texans fans are a little confused. Obviously, they have their own issues in that they're going to have to pay some of these rookies here real soon. Um, but they liked this guy. He's an average to good lineman. He's not good to great. I feel like we're paying him in that kind of good to great money range
Fair. Yeah.
with the extension. But again, that's just kind of the market right now for these guys. And it's honestly, this might set the market for the rest of it as well, being one of the first dominoes, as you mentioned earlier.
And you look at, we went through and did what we would do in free agency, what you would do, what we would do in the draft, all of that. We did that on this page. Go check out those videos if you haven't. I was high on bringing in Rasheed Walker and having him play one of the tackle positions. This effectively plugs that hole at a cheaper price because I think it's like it's still less than 20 is what we're paying Titus right now. Rasheed's gonna command north of 20 right now. So, and age is a factor there, but I think this is a really good get for the Browns for a really low quality price. I mean, we paid a 5th-round pick, and I saw this tweet, and it made me really excited because this reporter, a Texans reporter from ESPN, DJ Bieniemy, has tweeted when this news broke, Texans for the second straight year trade away their best offensive lineman. So when you have that kind of reaction coming out of the camp over there from the team you traded with, it bodes well. It makes you feel good. You know what I mean, E?
It does, and yet ESPN gave, the Browns a D plus for this trade and the Texans an A minus. I've seen a few of these different grades over the day, yesterday, and they all made me scratch my head because they don't align with, anything that I'm seeing in terms of the type of player this guy is. Yes, we might have overpaid a little bit, because not only do we extend him for that salary, but we also give away a pick, but this is a known proven starter. Not the best, granted, but a starter at O line, which is exactly what we needed. So I just don't quite understand why he's getting graded so poorly by media, a couple different outlets, honestly.
And it's funny the flip of it, and I tend to be more chronically online and on X specifically in terms of acting and talking and being in the thick of things of reactions and stuff. And everyone feels like this is a home run trade for the Cleveland Browns in terms of adding in a right tackle, adding in a piece to an offensive line that effectively, barring Joel Batonio not retiring, you're going to add four new pieces potentially starting. I know there's still Luke Whippler and maybe Posick that could come in and play center next year. We'll see what happens there, but potentially you have now five new starters coming in on this offensive line on top of Tytus now being brought in. So there is a lot of movement at the offensive line. And I think this is a good veteran option to bring in for a low price tag in terms of what we had to give up for him to come in and just shore up a little bit of this offensive line. So we're not starting like five rookies or three rookies like Andrew Berry joked about in his press conference we reacted to. But speaking of rookies, Eric, you said that this makes it really interesting for the draft. And I agree. Why do you think that?
Yeah, because for the most part, he is on the right side of that O line. And the right side of the line is where most of this draft class sits in the decent O line prospects out there. Obviously, that blind side tackle is an important position, and we seem to be getting a little further and further away from filling that role. Obviously, there is a lot of time left, and there's plenty of time to kind of fill these roles. Maybe there's another free agent that we're gonna slot in there, but that is an open position that is a really key one if you want to keep your quarterback standing upright and healthy. And yet we don't address this with the first move so far, and we
Yeah,
can't really in the draft because there's no real talent there in the draft this year.
well, I'll raise you one a little bit because we've started to talk a little bit about the combine happenings and what's gone on in Indiana and whatnot. Monroe Freeling, who was a guy we kind of rated as a second round pick when we first sat down to talk, had himself a good combine, had himself a good interview. The knock on him is he's young, hasn't had a lot of starts at Georgia, but he is a true left tackle, and he is a prospect that's rising on my own board a little bit. That maybe at that second first round pick, or if we trade back a little bit in the first round at 6 and go to like 10, 12, some of those mocks that you've seen out there, I could see him being a really enticing option for this Cleveland Browns team to bring in and hopefully be the left tackle of the future. Now, that's banking on a rookie, of course, but I do think he could be a good fit there. I also think that this trade, because of the fact that he has so
Hold
much.
on.
Go ahead.
Pause
Yeah.
real quick because you gotta let me respond to the one thing before you move on to the next thing.
That's fair. My bad.
The
I'm
piece
excited. We're
that you
talking
just
O line. We're talking O line. I'm excited, man. My
too
bad.
much this offseason. The piece that you just glossed over there is that he's a rookie playing at left tackle, expecting to start at left tackle. That's not like a piece of this that you just gloss over. Yes, he might develop into a very nice piece on the left side of a line, but we need starters. Like this isn't a guy that's going to sub in for us. He's going to be starting for us. So, is he there yet? And we're talking NFL. The answer is probably no, and that's where I get a little nervous as we shape up this O-line.
That's fair too, but then you look at a guy, maybe we bring in Walker from Green Bay. Maybe you switch Titus over to the left tackle because he's played there before. I don't think they're going to do that, but I'm talking worst case scenario. There's a lot of different ways you can go about this, and that leads into my next point before you so rudely interrupted me, even though I was talking in circles around you, is the fact that because of how much Titus has and his ability to play all over the offensive line, it frees you up to do more in the draft than just say we need to take two offensive linemen in the first three picks or something like that. Say they want to go a different direction. And I know we'll talk a little bit more about that later this week in regards to like a Caleb Downs, for example. but it gives you the ability to do a little bit more. Also, with obviously assuming you're going to sign more offensive line talent in free agency, which I think we both think they're going to end up doing, right?
Yeah, definitely. Again, I think you're leaving a little like you're talking very optimistically, which is great. I think you're an optimistic guy. But as you say these things, in my mind, just because he can and has played all over the line doesn't mean he should. We're talking about a guy that is very average at best. His best years were like 2021, maybe 2020. That's a long time ago, especially for an O lineman. So I get where you're coming from, but we have not signed the all pro O lineman that can just swap out on any piece of this line. That's not who we're getting. So I want to set expectations properly.
And I understand what you're saying too, but you got to put in the storyline and what was going on, obviously, in with the Texans as well, because they were having offensive line issues, and the reason they were swapping him around so much was to try to help plug and stop the offensive line issues. Let me remind you, an ESPN beat reporter who covers the Texans called him their best offensive lineman. This is a good get, in my opinion. I am being optimistic. I'm being that Cleveland homer I
Mm,
tend to be. I think he's going to be a really good get for us, at least for the next couple years. He's 29, he's a little bit older, but I'm very optimistic about this acquisition because he's in that same realm of player that I was hoping they'd spend double the money potentially on.
all I'm going to say, you saying that a beat reporter said something means absolutely nothing. I can say that Mary Kay said something. She's a beat reporter for the Browns. That means absolutely nothing. So maybe not the point that you think it is making there. But listen, they've got to play football. That's exactly why they line up and they take snaps and they play the damn thing because who knows? Maybe he'll turn out to be our best O lineman. Here's hoping. I think that part of him is probably a little gone. But if we can get solid reps out of him on that right side of the line, then I'm all for it.
I am excited to see what he can do. I'm excited to see what the Cleveland Browns do moving forward, not just with the offensive line, but of course the wide receiver room. You have so many rumors swirling, a lot of Ohio State Buckeyes linked to the Cleveland Browns, like Marvin Harrison, Chris Olave. So there's a lot of good information, exciting information that's floating out there right now with the combine that I can't wait to continue to cover and start to cover as we move towards owner meetings and as we move forward into the free agency and, of course, trade bonanza that is March NFL football.
In soccer, the other football, there's a saying during the off season when all the trades and signings are happening. It's called silly season, and they call it that for a reason because there are so many rumors flying that are just ridiculous and never amount to anything. We are fully in the midst of the NFL's version of silly season right now. It's fun, but I hope the Browns are putting together something special because it feels internally like there is something with this team. Like they could do something. So they cannot miss. We talk about it over and over. They cannot miss in free agency or in the draft. I do think this is a good start though.
I do too, as well. And you got to remember, they broke ground yesterday on something nice and shiny over there in the Berea area by the airport. They care about that. They care about putting butts in seats over there up the highway at that new stadium that they started digging and excavating. So time will tell, but I feel really good about what we've done with domino number one of hopefully multiple offensive dominoes for the Cleveland Browns this year.
And on that note, the debate never ends, but the show does for now. We'll see you next time.